Hey, this is Tony from the Cold Case Project, where we focus on unsolved cases across the United States. Our mission is to bring attention to these unresolved mysteries that need your help. All the information we cover in these cases is readily available on the internet, but we rewrite and repurpose it for the purpose of these videos. Our goal is to spread the word about the thousands of unsolved cold cases still out there. Thank you for watching. If you want to help shed light on these cases, make sure to like and subscribe for more content. Your support can make a difference.
Jessica Dietzel, a 21-year-old mother with a bright smile and a beautiful young daughter. Jessica vanished without a trace on February 18, 2020, in Albany, Georgia. Her disappearance has left a trail of questions, conflicting information, and deep sorrow for those who loved her. It was an ordinary day that turned into a nightmare for Christina Johnson, Jessica's mother. That day marked the last time anyone would hear from Jessica. She had been staying at a local motel in Albany and, for reasons still unclear, used someone else's phone to log in a Facebook Messenger. From there, she sent a series of messages to a friend, messages that have since become the focal point of the investigation. One of the most chilling lines she wrote was, "I know I'm in too deep." Those words suggested fear, perhaps regret, and a silent cry for help. But what exactly did they mean? And who was she referring to? The phone Jessica used belonged to Gary Potter, a man with a disturbing criminal past. Potter had a history that dated back to 2002, including charges of aggravated stalking and battery. More recently, he was facing multiple assault charges, for which he later failed to appear in court, leading to a bench warrant for his arrest. Witnesses placed Jessica and Potter together that night, both at the motel and earlier at Cowboy Bill's bar. Despite this, Potter denied knowing Jessica, claiming she had never used his phone or been in his truck. Investigators, however, found a hair inside Potter's truck. While they confirmed its discovery, they haven't confirmed, however, if it was Jessica's DNA. This discovery deepened suspicions but led to no arrests. Search warrants were executed at Potter's property, but no significant breakthroughs emerged. Jessica's mother has always believed that something terrible happened that night, possibly at the motel or nearby at a known drug house. Christina theorized that Jessica may have been given drugs that led to an overdose, or worse, that someone intentionally harmed her. Adding to the mystery was a disturbing tip that reached law enforcement. A confidential informant claimed that Jessica's body had been hidden in a deep freezer in an old landfill. Yet, in a tragic twist, searchers went to the wrong landfill, focusing on the newer Maple Hill facility rather than the older site mentioned in the tip. No cadaver dogs were brought in, no freezers were thoroughly searched, and the potential lead went cold. Christina believes this was a critical misstep that may have cost them the chance to find Jessica. Throughout the investigation, Christina has voiced her frustration and heartbreak over how the case was handled. From the very beginning, she felt law enforcement did not take her daughter's disappearance seriously. Initial responses from police included dismissive remarks, suggesting Jessica would return home soon, brushing aside the growing concerns of her frantic mother. Christina handed over evidence she collected herself, including Jessica's notebook found 6 months after her disappearance. Oddly pristine, the notebook was discovered in a parking lot, untouched by the weather despite heavy rains in the preceding days. It was clear to Christina that the notebook had been recently placed there, possibly as a taunt or a clue. Christina also found a phone belonging to Jessica's estranged husband, which contained alarming messages from the night Jessica vanished, including one that read, "You alive?" Shockingly, Christina claims that when she gave the phone to law enforcement, it was never officially logged into evidence. Instances like this eroded her faith in the system, leading her to seek help elsewhere. One person who answered that call was Leah D., host of the least of these podcasts. Leah, a former victim advocate for those struggling with substance abuse, stumbled upon Christina's plea for help on Facebook. Struck by the mother's desperation and the lack of police involvement, Leah formed a team to help search for Jessica. Their efforts took them to homeless camps, wooded areas, and other places where Jessica might have been taken or hidden. But each search ended in heartbreak and frustration. Leah's involvement also shed light on Jessica's struggles. Jessica had battled substance abuse issues, which, sadly, influenced how some viewed her disappearance. In many missing person cases, especially those involving individuals with troubled pasts, there's a dangerous tendency to assume the person left by choice or that their lifestyle led to their fate. But Jessica was a devoted mother. Christina knew something was terribly wrong when Jessica missed her daughter's birthday, a day she would never have ignored unless something had prevented her. 5 years have passed since that dreadful day, and Christina's grief remains as raw as ever. She now cares for Jessica's daughter, who has grown into a bright, beautiful girl with her mother's smile. They talk about Jessica often, keeping her memory alive, but the void left by her absence is impossible to fill. Candlelight vigils have become a yearly ritual, marking the passage of time without answers, without closure. The case remains officially unsolved. Gary Potter, still a person of interest, has vanished, evading justice not only in Jessica's case, but for his other crimes as well. Christina continues to beg anyone with information to come forward. Her message is simple. Someone out there knows what happened to Jessica. It's been 4 long years, but the hope for answers has not faded. On the evening of October 14th, 1965, Mary Shotwell Little, a 25-year-old secretary at Citizens Southern Bank in downtown Atlanta, had what seemed like a typical day ahead. Mary had recently wed just 6 weeks prior to her husband, Roy Little, and was enjoying the bliss of married life. Roy was out of town for work, set to return the following day for a dinner party they were both looking forward to. After finishing her workday, Mary ran a few errands, one of which included a stop at the Colonial Market to pick up groceries for the meal she was preparing for their dinner gathering. Following that, she met a female coworker at the SNS Piccadilly cafeteria in the Lenox Square Shopping Center in the upscale Buckhead area of Atlanta. This was a rare night out for Mary, given that Roy was away, and by all accounts, she was in high spirits, enjoying life as a newlywed. After a pleasant dinner and some casual window shopping, Mary bid her companion a cheerful farewell, saying, "See you later," and made her way toward her Mercury Comet, which was parked in the yellow lot. She had her trusty brown leather handbag in tow, and from all outward appearances, everything seemed just as it should. However, this is where the story takes a dark and mysterious turn. Despite this being a typical evening for Mary, she vanished that night without a trace. Gone into thin air, without a single sign of where she had gone or what had happened to her. The next morning, when Mary failed to call into work, alarm bells started ringing. Her boss, concerned about her absence, took immediate action. He contacted her apartment complex and spoke to the landlord, hoping to figure out what had happened to the young woman who was typically so dependable. When the landlord went to check on the apartment, the first chilling discovery was made. The morning newspaper that was typically left outside Mary's apartment door was still lying untouched on the sidewalk. With a sinking feeling in their stomach, the landlord entered the apartment, only to find it eerily vacant. Nothing appeared out of the ordinary, but it was clear that Mary had not been home the previous night. The mystery continued to unfold as her boss sought out the coworker Mary had dined with the night before. Fortunately, the coworker was able to provide a crucial clue. She remembered where Mary had parked her car at the Lenox yellow lot. So, the investigation shifted to the location of the car, and security guards were sent to comb through the lot for any sign of it. However, despite hours of searching, the car was nowhere to be found. Hours later, around noon, after an increasingly frustrated search, Mary's boss went to Lenox Square himself, hoping to turn up new information. After a lengthy search, he finally spotted Mary's car, parked exactly where her coworker had said it would be. But there was one problem. According to Lenox Square security records, Mary's car was not listed. The parking lot kept meticulous records of all cars parked overnight, issuing citations for those that overstayed their welcome, but Mary's car was strangely absent from these records. It appeared as if the car had left the lot after 8 p.m. the previous evening and returned before noon the next day. This would have been an essential lead, but the authorities never requested the records, and as a result, they missed a potential piece of crucial evidence. What could have been discovered if they had looked deeper into the lot's history that night? The investigation shifted to a more detailed examination of Mary's car. When authorities arrived, they found a disturbing scene inside. The car had a light dusting of red dirt, likely from George's infamous red clay, suggesting that the car had been driven around. There were no signs of forced entry, but what caught the investigators' attention were the groceries still in the car, including a few bottles of Coca-Cola or Tab, and a package of Kent cigarettes, all of which were familiar items Mary would usually buy. But things took a darker turn when investigators found blades of grass scattered throughout the interior of the car. Neatly folded clothing, including undergarments and a stocking, were also found in the car, with evidence that the stocking had been cut, possibly with a knife. Worse still, there were bloodstains on the clothes and other items in the car, and a bloody fingerprint was found on the steering wheel. The blood was identified as belonging to Mary, leading investigators to speculate that the blood might have come from a nosebleed. However, the amount of blood and its distribution in the car raised suspicions that something more sinister might have taken place. Still, the mystery only deepened when Mary's outer clothing, handbag, jewelry, and car keys were nowhere to be found. Where had they gone? As days passed, further developments created a more chilling picture. Mary's husband, Roy, was informed of her disappearance and returned to Atlanta, but his actions raised questions. He refused to take a polygraph test, and his behavior seemed strangely indifferent to the situation. He appeared more concerned about his car than his missing wife, which didn't sit well with the authorities or even Mary's friends and family. Mary's credit card was later used in North Carolina, and there were reports of her being seen in the company of unidentified men. But even though the investigation was moving forward, progress was slow. Unsettling phone calls started to emerge, including one from a mysterious caller who expressed condolences about Mary's disappearance, though it was never clear who this person was. In a desperate attempt to find any clues, authorities appealed to the public, urging people who lived within a 20-mile radius of Lenox Square to search for any trace of Mary. The search was exhaustive, but the answers were not forthcoming. Meanwhile, Roy's actions continued to raise suspicions. He wrote a check for 2 season tickets to the Atlanta Falcons' 1966 football season, despite the fact that his wife was still missing, and contacted Rich's department store to disclaim responsibility for any charges made on Mary's credit card. These actions seemed bizarre to the investigators, who were starting to build a case that Roy's involvement, while unproven, was certainly worth investigating further. As the investigation continued, even more bizarre incidents started to surface. A woman came forward and claimed she had encountered a man at Lenox Square on the night Mary disappeared. This man had approached her as she entered her car and told her that her tire was flat. Sensing something was off, she decided to drive away, only to discover that all her tires were perfectly fine. This encounter had occurred shortly before 8 p.m., the time when Mary had bid farewell to her coworker, and it raised the possibility that this man could have been involved in Mary's disappearance. However, despite the woman's detailed account, authorities were never able to locate the mysterious man or anyone else who had been approached by him that night. Mary's friends and family also revealed that she had received disturbing, unwanted phone calls in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. She had expressed discomfort about these calls, and during one conversation, she had mentioned that she was married and unable to meet anyone, suggesting that she may have been dealing with a stalker or unwanted admirer. Additionally, 5 roses had been delivered to her apartment shortly before her disappearance, adding fuel to speculation that Mary might have been the target of a secret admirer. The florist who delivered the roses confirmed the purchase, but could not provide any concrete details about the person who had ordered them, except that it was a white male whose identity remained unknown. On October 28th, a note was discovered at the Citizen's Southern Branch in Buckhead, suggesting that investigators search for Mary in Dahlonega, Georgia. Later that evening, A cook at the Royal Castle restaurant reported seeing a woman who resembled Mary dining with a man. The two were seen arguing before they left the restaurant together, but once again, there was no resolution to this lead. On November 7th, the Carterville police received an anonymous tip claiming that Mary's body might be in a rock quarry in White, Georgia, a place notorious for its depth and difficulty to search. The search turned up nothing, but the tip added yet another layer of intrigue to the case. As the investigation stretched on, multiple anonymous letters and phone calls came in, claiming to have information about Mary's whereabouts. One letter, received on November 3rd, claimed that Mary had been seen in Jacksonville, Florida shortly after her marriage, with the letter alleging that she had married Roy to spite a former boyfriend who was a trucker. However, when authorities contacted the attorney mentioned in the letter, he had no knowledge of Mary or any such arrangement. The case seemed to grow even murkier with each passing day. On November 10th, a woman in DeKalb County received a chilling phone call from an anonymous male with an accent. The caller, who claimed to have been watching her for weeks, threatened her safety and referenced the murder of Mary Shotwell Little. His remarks were vile and menacing, leaving the woman shaken and terrified. The case continued to spiral, and the investigation became more convoluted. On November 15th, a man at Rich's department store spoke to a teacher about Mary's case, suggesting that it was easy to commit murder in Atlanta and get away with it. This disturbing comment raised even more questions and led to an investigation into the man's identity, though he denied any involvement in Mary's disappearance. Finally, in September 1966, Larry Sterrell, an inmate serving a life sentence for murder, came forward with a new theory. He claimed that before his imprisonment, he had participated in burglaries around College Park with 2 or 3 other men. Sterrell alleged that one of his associates, Jerry Mason, had shown him the body of Mary Shotwell Little, which was supposedly buried near a construction site at Atlanta Airport. According to Sterrell, Mason had abducted Mary, and Mason later flaunted a large sum of money in her credit card, claiming he had kidnapped her. The case seemed to take yet another twist, with new revelations coming forward, though the truth remained elusive. Despite countless leads, numerous anonymous tips, and ongoing efforts to find Mary, the case remained cold. Years passed, and Mary's disappearance continued to haunt both her family and the people of Atlanta. In 2003, Jerry Mason, the man implicated by Sterrell, was convicted of murdering 2 police officers in California and sentenced to life in prison. In 2017, retired detectives and former law enforcement officials teamed up to re-examine the case, pledging to solve the mystery of Mary Shotwell Little's disappearance once and for all. However, despite their best efforts, the case remains unsolved, and Mary's fate still hangs in the balance. This perplexing and tragic case leaves many questions unanswered. Was Mary's disappearance the result of a stalker, a love affair gone wrong, or was it connected to something darker involving her workplace? Theories abound, but after more than 5 decades, Mary Shotwell Little remains missing. Who was behind her disappearance? Was it Roy, her husband, who acted suspiciously during the investigation? Or was it someone else, perhaps one of the many men connected to the strange events around her life? As the years pass and the mystery deepens, the case continues to baffle investigators and intrigue those who follow it. Theories may come and go, but the truth remains elusive. Who, if anyone, truly knows what happened to Mary Shotwell Little on that fateful night in 1965? On January 18, 2020, 21-year-old Kelsn Noel Roberts vanished from the Flying J truck stop off Interstate 75 in Resica, Georgia. Her disappearance has left her family, law enforcement, and the community searching for answers. Over 5 years later, her whereabouts remain unknown, and the circumstances surrounding her disappearance continue to raise questions. Kelsn was last seen at the Flying J truck stop located at 268 Resica Beach Boulevard in Resica, Gordon County, Georgia. The Flying J is a popular rest stop for travelers, featuring a gas station, convenience store, and a Denny's restaurant. On the evening of January 18th, Kelsn entered the employees-only kitchen area of the Denny's restaurant, where she reportedly had an altercation with an employee. Witnesses described her as agitated and in a hurry. She left the area before police arrived, but not before leaving behind her backpack. Inside the backpack, authorities found Kelsn's wallet, debit card, identification, some cash, and her phone charger. Notably, her cell phone was missing and has never been recovered. Some reports suggest that Kelsn told witnesses she was at the truck stop to meet an unknown male, but this claim has not been corroborated or elaborated on by investigators. 2 days after her disappearance, on January 20th, 2020, Kelsn's family began searching for her. They discovered her white Toyota Corolla parked in the far corner of the Flying J's back parking lot. Most of her belongings, including her purse, were still inside the vehicle. Despite the discovery of her car, Kelsn was nowhere to be found. Her family officially reported her missing to the Murray County Sheriff's Office that same day. However, investigators were not made aware of the vehicle's discovery until January 29th, nearly 10 days later. During the search of the area, some of Kelsn's clothes were found hidden in a bush near the dumpsters behind the restaurant. The discovery of her clothes raised concerns about foul play, but no further evidence was found to explain what had happened to her. At the time of her disappearance, Kelsn was 5 feet 1 inch tall and weighed approximately 117 pounds. She had blonde hair, and her eye color has been described as either green or blue in different reports. Kelsn had distinctive body modifications, including gauge piercings in her ears and a tattoo on the inside of her right forearm. The tattoo features a design of blue waves, green and yellow sea turtles, and yellow hibiscus flowers, with the words "Love yourself first" written in script. Kelsn's disappearance is not the only mysterious case linked to the Flying J truck stop around that time. Just 2 days before Kelsn went missing, on January 16th, 2020, 21-year-old Caleb Nathaniel Smith was reported missing from the same location. Caleb's body was later found in February 2020 near Sugar Valley, Georgia. Authorities have stated that there is no evidence connecting the two cases, but the proximity of their disappearances and the shared location have raised concerns among the public. Caleb's death was ruled a homicide, but no suspects have been identified, and the investigation into his case remains open. The fact that both Kelsn and Caleb disappeared from the same truck stop within days of each other has led to speculation about a possible connection, though law enforcement has not confirmed any link between the two cases. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation has taken over the investigation into Kelsn's disappearance. Despite extensive searches and interviews, no significant leads have emerged. The discovery of Kelsn's car and belongings at the Flying J, along with her clothes hidden near the dumpsters, suggests that she may have been in distress or met with foul play. However, without her cell phone or additional evidence, investigators have struggled to piece together what happened to her. One critical piece of information that has not been publicly disclosed is whether authorities were able to ping Kelsn's cell phone to determine its last known location. If her phone was active after she left the Flying J, it could provide clues about her movements and potential whereabouts. Unfortunately, no updates on this aspect of the investigation have been shared with the public. The fact that her car and belongings were found at the truck stop, combined with the discovery of her clothes hidden near the dumpsters, has led many to fear the worst. The lack of answers and the passage of time have only added to the frustration and heartbreak felt by those who knew and loved her. The case has also drawn attention to the safety of truck stops and rest areas, which are often frequented by travelers and can be vulnerable to criminal activity. Kelsn's disappearance and Caleb's death have highlighted the need for increased security and vigilance in such locations. If you have any information regarding Kelsn Noel Roberts' disappearance or her current whereabouts, please contact the Murray County Sheriff's Office at 695-592 or the Gordon County Sheriff's Office at 629-1444. You can also reach out to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation with any tips or leads. Kelsn's family and investigators remain hopeful that someone with information will come forward to help bring closure to this case. Every detail, no matter how small, could be the key to solving the mystery of what happened to Kelsn on that fateful January evening. Will Farrer's disappearance remains one of Georgia's most baffling unsolved mysteries. On the morning of September 13, 2002, Farrer was last seen near Rocky Comfort Creek on Clark's Mill Road, just outside Louisville, Georgia. At around 10 a.m., a witness reported seeing Farrer in the company of two unidentified men. They were in a white Dodge pickup truck with North Carolina license plates. One of the men was visibly armed, raising immediate suspicions about the nature of their encounter. Police sketches of these two men were distributed, but their identities remain unknown. Later that day, Farrer's boat was discovered in the creek, positioned awkwardly over a fallen tree nearly a foot above the waterline. The scene was unsettling. His 3 fishing rods lay neatly inside the boat, accompanied by his cage of crickets and his hat, which was found upside down. His truck was parked nearby on shore, with the keys still inside along with his shotgun, suggesting he had not planned to leave the area abruptly. An extensive search operation was quickly launched, scouring Rocky Comfort Creek and the surrounding woods. Despite damming and rerouting the creek to aid in the search, no trace of Farrer was found. Initially, authorities suspected that Farrer might have drowned, but this theory seemed increasingly unlikely. Farrer was known to be a strong swimmer, and the creek was shallow enough that he could have walked out unless he was unconscious or incapacitated. Investigators explored various other theories, including foul play, suicide, and voluntary disappearance. However, nothing pointed conclusively in any of these directions. Farrer had no known financial difficulties, had not used any of his credit cards since the day he vanished, and had left behind personal belongings and his truck, indicating he hadn't planned to go far. Friends and family described him as content with his semi-retired life, which he spent caring for his elderly mother. Despite 3 failed marriages and the tragic loss of his 2 daughters, he appeared to be coping well and had no known personal issues that might have prompted a sudden disappearance. One potential lead surfaced when investigators learned that, in 1998 or 1999, Farrer had discovered a marijuana patch growing along Rocky Comfort Creek. He had reported it anonymously to the police, but whether this action had any connection to his disappearance remained speculative. Farrer's family strongly believes that he may have been targeted as a result of this report. Adding to the mystery, Farrer had been attacked earlier that year, in February 2002, at the very same location where he was last seen. 2 unidentified men had assaulted him with a stun gun in what appeared to be an attempted robbery. Farrer, however, had no cash on him at the time and managed to escape by fleeing into the woods and hiding until the assailants left. Although he reported this incident to the police, no arrests were made. This attack left Farrer shaken and fearful. Thereafter, he made a habit of carrying a gun with him whenever he went to the creek. The weeks and months following his disappearance were filled with uncertainty and frustration. Farrer's sister received 4 anonymous letters left in her mailbox, each providing cryptic hints about who might have been involved in her brother's disappearance. Though she has not revealed the identity mentioned in the letters, she admitted that the name did not surprise her, suggesting a possible local connection or someone known to the family. Despite the passage of time and numerous efforts by law enforcement and Farrer's family, the case remains unsolved. No substantial leads have emerged to definitively explain what happened to Farrer that September morning. On May 11, 1991, Terry Eugene Rouse vanished without a trace from Waycross, Georgia. At just 24 years old, Terry's sudden disappearance sent shockwaves through his tight-knit family and the local community. Standing between 6 feet 2 inches and 6 feet 4 inches and weighing around 180 to 190 pounds, Terry was last seen at a party on Swamp Road, a stretch leading from Waycross to the Okefenokee Swamp. That night, Terry attended a party at a friend's house. Witnesses later recounted seeing him asleep in his light blue Ford Thunderbird around 3 a.m. One friend reportedly woke him up as they left the party. As they drove away, they noticed headlights following their vehicle along Swamp Road, but lost them after turning onto a side street. Later that day, a Georgia State trooper discovered Terry's Thunderbird parked halfway behind the entrance sign to the Okefenokee Swamp Park. The car was idling, with the radio playing and a window rolled down. It had run out of gas, and the battery was low. Inside the car, investigators found a pack of cigarettes, a lighter, a carton of cigarettes, and one full bottle of beer from a six-pack purchased the night before. Despite extensive searches, no trace of Terry was found. Terry grew up in a close-knit family where community and kinship were paramount. The Thrift and Rouse families, deeply rooted in the area, often gathered for fish fries and outdoor activities near the swamp. Terry had a particularly close bond with his first cousin, Craig Thrift, with whom he worked at Craig's father's concrete business. However, beneath the surface of familial harmony lay tensions. It later emerged that Terry had been involved in an affair with Craig's wife, Rhonda. Terry and Rhonda had a romantic history, dating back to high school, and their rekindled relationship added a layer of complexity and potential motive to the mystery. Initially, the investigation into Terry's disappearance yielded few clues. The vastness of the Okefenokee Swamp, spanning over 438,000 acres, made searches challenging. Rumors circulated, suggesting everything from accidental death to foul play linked to drugs, though Terry was only known to use marijuana occasionally. A major break in the case came when Terry's mother, Sarah Thrift, discovered the affair between Terry and Rhonda. This revelation shifted suspicion towards Craig. When investigators asked Craig to take a polygraph test, he refused, stating, "Do you have a body? If you don't have a body, I'm not taking the test." His refusal deepened the family rift and heightened suspicions. The case went cold for nearly 2 decades until 2009, when investigator Rebecca Williams from the Ware County Sheriff's Office reopened the file. Her persistence eventually uncovered damning circumstantial evidence against Craig. During a tumultuous separation from his second wife, Craig allegedly confessed multiple times to killing Terry. Further investigation revealed testimonies from witnesses who recalled significant events from the night Terry disappeared. The babysitter at Craig and Rhonda's house remembered a heated argument between the couple the next morning. Another woman, who dated Craig post-divorce, claimed he confessed to killing Terry and disposing of his body using tools from the family's concrete business. In April 2012, Craig Thrift was indicted for Terry's murder. Though no physical evidence, such as Terry's body, was ever found, the accumulation of circumstantial evidence led to Craig's conviction for felony murder in 2014. He was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 7 years. For Terry's family, the conviction brought a bittersweet sense of closure. His mother, Sarah, had deteriorated mentally and emotionally over the years, consumed by the loss of her son. Though it was unclear whether she fully comprehended the conviction before her passing, her family hoped she found some peace. Despite the conviction, Terry's body remains missing. Athena Joy Curry was a vibrant and ambitious young woman whose life took a tragic and mysterious turn on May 27, 2011, when she disappeared without a trace from Atlanta, Georgia. At the time of her disappearance, Athena was only 20 years old, standing 5 feet 8 inches tall and weighing between 150 to 155 pounds. She was an African-American female with striking black hair and warm brown eyes. Athena had several distinctive tattoos, including the words K-Care on her left arm, a bow wrapped around the same arm, a rose with the word Rocky on her right wrist, a music note on the left side of her neck, and a tribal symbol on the top of her left hand. Her nose and lower lip were pierced, adding to her unique appearance. Born on November 2, 1990, in Oregon, Athena was the youngest of 5 children. She spent her early years in Portland, where she attended Grant High School, participating actively in softball and track. During her senior year, Athena moved to Atlanta, Georgia, to live with her sister Asa McGee, seeking new opportunities and a fresh start. After graduating from Martin Luther King Jr. High School in Lithonia, Georgia, she enrolled in the University of Phoenix, pursuing a degree in healthcare administration with dreams of becoming a pediatrician. Athena's life took a significant turn when she entered into an on-and-off relationship with Yusef Maja. Together, they had a son named King K, who quickly became the center of Athena's world. Family members describe her as a loving and devoted mother who would never willingly leave her son. Her sister, Asa McGee, emphasized this point, stating she would never leave her son. This is her pride and joy. She has never left him, ever. In the days leading up to her disappearance, Athena had planned to spend the 2011 Memorial Day weekend at Yusef's home, located at 1485 Beecher Street in Atlanta. However, on the early morning of May 27, 2011, an argument broke out between Athena and Yusef after she discovered incriminating text messages from another woman on his phone. According to Yusef, the fight escalated, leading Athena to storm out of the house around 3 a.m., leaving behind her son and all of her belongings. Yusef claimed that Athena left on foot, as she did not have a car and had used public transportation to reach his home. Despite his belief that something was wrong, he did not report her missing for 5 days. This delay raised red flags for Athena's family, especially her sister Asa, who was deeply disturbed by the circumstances. Asa recalled her haunting last conversation with Athena, where she had jokingly warned, "I'm calling to make sure Yusef didn't put you in a grave somewhere." That chilling remark continued to haunt her as days passed without any word from Athena. Yusef's delayed response and inconsistent statements fueled suspicion among family members and authorities. Asa was the one who ultimately reported Athena missing, deeply troubled by the thought that her sister would never abandon her son, especially without her belongings. If she was going to storm out because she had a point to prove or she was angry, she was going to take her son. That was going to be her point to prove, Asa explained. The relationship between Athena and Yusef had been volatile. In 2010, Yusef was arrested in Gwinnett County for physically assaulting Athena, hitting her and allegedly threatening her with a stun gun. He later admitted, "I never touched a woman in my life until Athena," acknowledging the abusive dynamics of their relationship. He also claimed that Athena had been violent towards him at times, even stabbing him with scissors during one altercation. Despite these turbulent incidents, there was no hard evidence directly implicating Yusef in Athena's disappearance. However, his behavior following her vanishing, especially the 5-day delay in reporting her missing, cast a long shadow of doubt. Police and loved ones suspected foul play but lacked the concrete evidence necessary to make an arrest. Athena's disappearance devastated her family. Her young son, King, was only 16 months old when his mother vanished. As years passed, the pain of not knowing what happened to Athena only deepened for her family, particularly during significant moments like Mother's Day, when King had to face another year without his mother. Over the years, various leads and tips came in, but none led to any significant breakthroughs. There were unsettling similarities between Athena's case and unidentified remains found in the area. In January 2012, about 20 minutes from where Athena disappeared, a Jane Doe was discovered near Feldwood Road in College Park, Georgia. The remains were estimated to belong to a woman aged 30 to 45, standing about 5 feet 6 inches tall, with an estimated death between 2008 and 2011. Although the age range and some details didn't match Athena precisely, the proximity and time frame raised questions. Another Jane Doe was found in South Carolina in 2011, but the estimated age was between 55 and 56 years old, ruling out any connection to Athena. Despite these discoveries, none provided the closure Athena's family so desperately sought. Athena's case remains unsolved, but her family continues to hold on to hope. Asa McGee, along with the rest of the family, has consistently urged anyone with information to come forward. If you have any information, even if you think it's insignificant, please give the detectives a call, Asa pleaded. Nobody wants to hold bitterness in their heart, And for your sense of peace, as well as my family's, please come forward and let us know what happened. Authorities and loved ones believe that someone knows what happened to Athena Joy Curry. The pain of not knowing has left an indelible mark on her family, especially her young son, who grows up without his mother. They continue to seek justice and answers, hoping that one day, Athena's story will finally have an ending. If you have any information about Athena Joy Curry's disappearance, please contact the Atlanta Police Department or your local authorities. Even the smallest detail could be the key to solving this heartbreaking mystery. The case of 9-year-old Anthony Mural is one that has haunted his family and the Atlanta community for decades. Anthony went missing on November 14, 1971, from his home in the Harris Homes housing community on Sells Avenue, Atlanta, Georgia. At the time of his disappearance, Anthony was just 9 years old, about 5 feet 2 inches tall, and weighed approximately 95 pounds, known for his sweet nature and his helpfulness. Anthony was a boy who would often make grocery runs for elderly neighbors, riding his purple bicycle through the neighborhood. His disappearance, however, was met with a quiet anguish from his family and community, but no immediate outcry from the public. At the time, there was no widespread media attention or public campaigns, leaving the tragedy confined to the heartbreak of his family and those who knew him. His mother, Ola Lee Mural, was devastated by his disappearance but refused to give up hope. She would leave the light on every night and chain Anthony's bicycle to the front porch, believing that one day he would return. She kept a mother's faith, hoping to see him ride back home, but she never did. 15 years later, she passed away without ever knowing the truth of what happened to her youngest child. His father, who was living in North Carolina at the time, passed away in 2011, leaving no answers or closure for his family. Anthony's disappearance was first classified by police as a runaway case. Authorities speculated that he might have traveled to North Carolina, where his father resided, although they never found any evidence to support this theory. His family was adamant that Anthony had not run away. There was no history of him being troubled or disobedient. He was the youngest of 4 siblings and had a close relationship with his family. He was a well-liked boy, especially in the neighborhood, where people appreciated his kind-hearted nature, helping them with errands and tasks. He was the baby of the family, and they described him as a happy, affectionate child who would never just disappear without reason. His brother, Stuart Knox, recalls that Anthony was his mother's favorite and that he received nothing but love from her. They simply couldn't believe that he would leave voluntarily. Adding to the mystery, a neighbor reported seeing Anthony playing outside shortly before he vanished and later claimed to have seen him getting into a vehicle with an adult male. However, this account was later recanted, and the police investigation was left with few solid leads. This unsettling piece of information raised further suspicion and made Anthony's family believe that something much darker might have been at play. His family did not trust the initial police theory of him running away, and over the years, they have pointed to other possible explanations, including their violent stepfather, Edward Groves, being involved. Groves had a known history of violence, even reportedly stabbing Anthony's mother at one point. Some of Anthony's relatives have speculated that Groves could have been responsible for the disappearance, possibly sending Anthony to live with family members as part of a plan to hurt his mother. However, Groves was never formally named as a suspect in the case. Despite all the years that have passed, Anthony's case has never been closed. His family's grief has only been compounded by the uncertainty. For over 5 decades, his loved ones have wondered what happened to him. They hold on to the memory of the kind-hearted boy who helped others and loved his family dearly. His mother's relentless hope that Anthony would return, along with the continuing search for answers, speaks to the deep bond that was formed with him. Even as time passes, his family still refuses to let go of the possibility that someone knows something about what happened to Anthony. The case received renewed attention in the years following his disappearance, especially when a string of similar cases occurred during the late 1970s and early 1980s in Atlanta. The period from 1979 to 1981 became known as the Atlanta child murders, during which a number of children, mostly African American, were abducted and killed. These cases shocked the nation and brought awareness to the issue of child abduction in a way that had not been seen before. Though Anthony's case was not initially linked to these murders, the attention surrounding the Atlanta child murders sparked a fresh look at Anthony's case. However, despite new leads, there was no resolution. In more recent years, advancements in forensic technology, including DNA testing, have allowed investigators to revisit cold cases like Anthony's. DNA evidence has been entered into databases, and forensic artists have created an age progression of what Anthony might look like today at the age of 61. Still, no breakthrough has come, and Anthony remains a missing person. His case is actively being worked on by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which is helping Atlanta police investigate the case once again. For those who knew him, the memory of Anthony still lingers. Bobby McCann, who was a senior in high school at the time and tutored underprivileged children, including Anthony, remembers the sweet boy fondly. McCann, now 71, recalls taking Anthony out to dinner once, a gesture that left a lasting impact. He said Anthony kind of got my heart and that he was a sweet kid. When he heard about Anthony's disappearance, McCann was devastated. The police's quick assumption that Anthony had run away did not sit right with him. He later became a teacher and principal, living in North Carolina, where he started his own family. The tragedy of Anthony's case stayed with him throughout his life. McCann recalls the overwhelming fear that swept the nation following the abduction of 6-year-old Adam Walsh in 1981, which left many parents fearful of allowing their children out of their sight. It was during this time that McCann's own son was just a toddler. McCann and other parents feared the worst, and he couldn't help but think of Anthony during that period. The renewed investigation into Anthony's disappearance continues today. Authorities are asking anyone with information, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, to come forward. There's always the hope that someone, somewhere, knows something that could finally bring closure to the Mural family. The case remains open, and people are encouraged to share any memories or pieces of information that could help solve the mystery of what happened to Anthony. It is a painful reminder that sometimes, even after decades, the smallest bit of information can be the key to unlocking a long unsolved case. In 1999, in a small town, far removed from global hysteria, an 11-year-old girl named Teresa Melissa Dean vanished without a trace, never to experience the coming millennium or the cultural waves that followed. Born on September 20th, 1987, in Macon, Georgia, to Dorothy Dean, Teresa was a vibrant, free-spirited child. She stood 4 feet 10 inches tall, weighed 75 pounds, had brown hair, blue eyes, and a speech impediment. Teresa attended Alexander II Magnet School and was known for her outgoing nature, often visiting neighbors and making friends wherever she went. On August 15, 1999, Teresa left her home around 4 p.m., telling her mother she was going to look at some puppies and then visit a friend. She said goodbye, expressing her love before running off on what was supposed to be a simple adventure. It was the last time Dorothy would see her daughter. Teresa's home was in a rural, wooded area where houses were spaced far apart. Dorothy, her fiancé Cody Landers, and Teresa's sister lived together. That evening, while Dorothy and Cody were busy with laundry and dinner, a neighbor saw Teresa about 100 yards from her home on Lawrence Street around 8 p.m. When Teresa hadn't returned by 9:30 p.m., Dorothy and Cody began searching for her. Without a home phone and in an era when cell phones weren't common, they couldn't call for help immediately. It wasn't until 11 p.m. that a concerned neighbor, skeptical of the couple's search efforts, called the police. Law enforcement arrived promptly, initiating an intensive search. They scoured the wooded area, questioned neighbors, and examined the family home, collecting articles of clothing for scent dogs. Unfortunately, both search and cadaver dogs found nothing. Dorothy and Cody took polygraphs. Dorothy passed, but Cody failed, attributing it to nervousness. In a troubling twist, a year after Teresa's disappearance, Cody Landers was charged with 7 counts of child molestation involving 2 girls aged 11 and 14, the same ages as Teresa and her sister. Dorothy initially defended Cody, insisting he had a loving relationship with Teresa, but they eventually separated. Teresa's case remained cold until 2001, when 11-year-old Shannon Polk vanished in Prattville, Alabama, only to be found murdered 2 months later. Then, in 2003, another 11-year-old, Heaven Lachey Ross, disappeared from Northport, Alabama, her remains discovered 2 months later. All 3 girls shared unsettling similarities. They were taken from trailer parks near construction sites, close to major highways, and all around the same time of year in August. Despite the parallels, police have not officially linked the cases. Dorothy has her own theory. During the initial search for Teresa, she noticed a small black car and a truck parked near an abandoned double-wide trailer. Witnesses later reported seeing a heavy-set woman driving the black car. Dorothy believes this woman could be responsible for her daughter's disappearance and feels valuable time was wasted focusing on her and Cody rather than pursuing other leads. Teresa's body has never been found, but police suspect foul play. The hope that she might still be alive, however slim, lingers. If you have any information about Teresa Melissa Dean's disappearance, please contact the FBI Macon, Georgia branch at 478-745-1271 or the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-843-5678.